Hey everybody, I want to touch on a couple things here. As you well know, I'm working on my car half-baked. I've got it on the jig, front end and rear end supported. I'm going to show you a little bit of that. But first thing I had to have for it is rear end housing. And I know I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it never hurts to do it again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about building rear end housings, how I do it. There's companies out there that you can buy fixturing to do this with. If you're building them, I highly recommend that. If you're doing one or two, it's well worth the money. I think Speedway Motors has got one. Like I say, there's a couple companies out there that sell them, and I recommend them versus sending them in and getting somebody to do them for you. If you're a fabricator, just do it yourself. That way in the future, somebody needs a housing there, you can recoup some of your money on that fixture. So here goes to nothing. What we have here is an early narrow web forward housing. I'm not sure exactly what year. It does not have a fill plug in the back of it, but it does have a factory installed drain plug. This is a housing somebody was throwing away, and I saved the center of it and added new tubes. Like I say, I fixtured it up. I've got a way to fixture the tube. You bolt the center section in, and I want you to see this too. When I'm building these, I use all 10 bolts and nuts, washers to hold it in there, because we're welding. This will move. It will move. If you can see here, there's a little bit of a misalignment here in the housing, but that is not the tube alignment. That is the way that the housing was stamped. So everything else is square to the world. What I do is I cut these housing ends are Mosier ends, and they measure from here to here 2 3/8. So I pre-cut the housing, and as you can see in here, I chamfer it really well so that when I'm TIG welding, I'll show you here, I can get my tungsten way down inside of there, and I can weld that root, and I will keyhole weld it. Keyhole means is it starts melting that away in a circle, then you put your filler rod in there. You don't lay it on top. Okay, I'll do a root pass first, and then I'll do filler passes after the fact if I have to. When I'm building a housing like this, as you can see, I've got it cut. I've got the ends tack welded on. They're tack welded on good in 4 places. This bar is an 1.5-inch bar. This is a fixture that I made. There's a slug that goes inside of the carrier that locates that 1.5-inch bar, and that's like a ground piece of drill rod. Then I have these pieces that bolt in the end, these fixtures that I've made. Most everything else works that way. Most of the stuff you buy is an 1.25-inch bar, which is fine. I've got one of those too that's wider for building wider housings and stuff. But what you don't want to do, and I've seen a ton of this on Sucker Book, and I've seen it on YouTube too, where guys will take them and they'll cut them right in the middle, and they'll use a piece of angle iron and clamp them on there and weld it together and say, that's how you narrow rear end housings. That ain't how you do it. Cut it out here at the end. If you're saving your ends, cut it out at the end and save your seal surface inside. Inside this housing, there's a recess for the bearing that comes in about that far. Then the seal's back in here. You want to be able to use that inner seal, because ball bearings don't seal real well. Basically a ball bearing will seal when it's under motion, but when they're sitting still, they'll leak. So you'll notice, like, guys will say, man, I got grease on my brakes, what's going on? Well, it's because it's sitting still riding on the road in the trailer, and once the gear oil gets out into the bearing, it will leak onto the brakes if you don't run that outer seal. Now at Mosier Engineering, they have like 35, 31 spline seals are all the same size, but out to Mosier Engineering, they have a seal that fits a 40 spline axle. So if you're putting 40 spline axles in it, ask for those seals. It's a green seal. I don't know the part number, but I know they have them. They use them in their double roll ball bearing stuff. It's a seal for those, and I highly recommend running outer seals. The back brace. As you can see on this, I've got a back brace fit, early Ford housing. I had to notch it in 2 other places, here and here, to get it to fit a little tighter. And you can tell it fits pretty tight. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap here, but I can fix that. TIG welding, the way I do is I lay it out like every inch. And then I weld an inch here, and then an inch over here, flip it around, weld in another spot, an inch and an inch, and then I let it cool off where I can touch it like this, put my hand on it, then I'll weld some more. Minimize this warpage, and that's the key. If you just go ahead and try to MIG weld this thing on one pass, it's going to bend them tubies back about 3/8 of an inch on each end, and that's like way bad. So you don't want that. That's basically how I do a housing, back brace and all. So like I say, narrow web. A narrow web, you can see from here to here, the center piece is real narrow. They call them hot rod housings. The rear end manufacturing companies. And then the other one, the heavy duty housing, it comes out into here somewhere. Just heavy duty stamped steel housing. And they work great, but with these you can get the ladder bars or your fixtures a lot narrower on this type of housing. If you're building a small car, you want to use a narrow web housing. You know, 55 Chevy, stuff like that, the wide web housings work good. But if you're building, you know, the Chevy too, a wide web probably would have worked. But like, say you're building a Vega, like this one here, a narrow web housing works really good because the brackets are so close to the center, you don't have to do a ton of grinding to fit the brackets on there. So that's my recommendation. And with the back brace, they're strong. They'll handle plenty of power, so nothing to miss there. Shop updates. Vegas moved, you just saw that. The wheelies, I've got everything done inside. You can see I got the push button mount for the line lock or trans brake, the shifters mounted, fire suppression's done, parachute, the CO2 bottle and the ignition panels mounted. Pedals are all done down in there. So it's basically time to start welding sheet metal floors in and then get the body back on. I was having some issues here because I got to mount the bottom corner of the body, and these bottom corners were paper thin. I couldn't do nothing with them, so I sort of had to grind them off. And I'm not done yet. I gotta lay them up a little bit more, but I put some 4-ounce cloths on there just to get a surface to work with, so I can get that bottom corner mounted, because the doors hang on the body right here, and they hang right here. And if this area here isn't mounted real solid, it will the doors will move around. Don't want that. So like I say, Vega, we just started working on fitting sheet metal in it. You can see that little transition floor piece. I'll talk about them next week better. Chevy 2. Like I say, can't do anything without a rear end housing, so that's what I'm building now. But it's up on the jig. It's all leveled up and everything, and you can see I put a secondary brace in here because the taillight panel's in such bad shape. I'm going to go ahead and replace it now so I don't have to do that next year, because next year I'm going to reskin the car, but not now. It's just too much. So I'll get all this stuff knocked out. I'll show you some fixturing. As I said before, I build these things 13 inches off the ground. All the fixturing, all that's in there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build fixturing that go inside here that's 13 inches on the inside to hold up the frame rails and everything. So I got a good level surface in there to work with my frame rails and my cross member and everything. So that's going to be next. I got the rear end fixtures underneath there, but it's not in place. I got to try to get that located this afternoon and then stick the housing in it. That's what we got going on here in the shop. I just wanted to share that. Figuring Jeff must want to stay because he bought a toolbox. He's been fantastic help so far. And we've been knocking this baby out. It's, like I say, she's turning out really good. So we get those pieces of sheet metal in there, and then we can start working on mounting the seat and the brake pedal and the steering and the shifter and all that stuff. We get all that stuff, gas pedal done, then we can tin it. So turning out good so far. That's what we got going on. Thanks for watching.